Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Mindshare Podcast. This show is sponsored by Kits Keep in Touch Systems, a two-time international award-winning marketing suite for sales professionals. REM, a real estate magazine, Canada's premier monthly magazine for real estate professionals. And OREA, the Ontario Real Estate Association, Canada's largest provincial real estate association. You can learn more about all of our sponsors by visiting my site, mindshare101.com. And while you're there, be sure to check out the details about our upcoming Mindshare Mastermind happening in Toronto on September 16th through the 18th. We've got a speaker lineup which is absolutely loaded. We're going beyond the industry norm, and we're bringing you speakers who are going to blow your mind. And like literally, these people are the best of the best in their field, and every single one of them have been carefully handpicked by me to ensure that they are relevant to you and will help you be even more successful. From marketing to production to mindset to wealth, I can't wait for this event later on this year. You've been hearing me talk about it. You may have already reserved your spot for it, or maybe you've been considering it. Spots are limited, so do not wait. Book your ticket and tell your closest colleague to book theirs too. Our 2024 Mindshare Mastermind is going to be epic. Check out the website for details, mindshare101.com. While you're there as well, be sure to download your free copy of the Ultimate Marketing Bundle so that you can build more mindshare to get more market share. Plus, learn more about our one-to-one coaching and keynote speaking. Today's episode is number 285. He began his real estate career in 1994 as a sales rep with a small, independently owned and operated family brokerage. In 1998, he then joined the LePage Real Estate Services office in Brampton. He built his real estate sales business on the foundation of volunteerism. And for all of his efforts as a volunteer, he was awarded in 2005 the City of Brampton's Long-Term Service Award. And in 2006, the Toronto Real Estate Board presented him with the Community Service Recognition Award. In 2006, he graduated from the University of Guelph's inaugural Master of Arts in Leadership program and leaned heavily upon his professional background and his certification in assessing emotional intelligence to research and write his thesis titled Performance Predictors for Real Estate Agents. He changed direction from real estate sales and began his management and leadership career in January 2007. And from there, he immediately began a recruitment and training program to grow the population and production of the realtors at the branch. As a result of his successes, he was chosen in 2010 and 2011 to be a member of LePage Canada's Services Advisory Committee. He has held positions of broker manager, general manager, and in 2023, he was elected as the president of the Mississauga Real Estate Board. Joining me on this episode of the Mindshare Podcast is Vice President of LePage Signature Realty, my friend, Mike Kennelly. Mike, wow. Welcome to the Mindshare Podcast.
Thank you, man. I don't know, my head can get any bigger after that introduction. That's phenomenal. And you're right, man. We're friends. We go back many years, and I like to say that I actually participated in probably your beta launch of Mindshare. If you remember, Dave, myself and our friend Trish Manning, we went to your office in November 2015 thereabouts, and we actually did what you're doing now. So I can kind of say now in my resume that I was part of the Mindshare beta launch that you've got now. 285 episodes, man. That is incredible. I know we talked a lot about that day. We went out for a couple of cold ones after. And I just got to, congratulate you in which you've been able to put together. This platform is phenomenal. And it's, I've been watching from afar your success and trajectory to where you are now. So all kudos to you, my brother. It's amazing.
I'm humbled, my friend. I appreciate that. And it's amazing that you were able to take that back to 2015, because I sit here sometimes and I say, yeah, we've been doing this a few years, and then it's all of a sudden you go, a few years. I mean, I know it started before the stuff that went on in 21 and, that time of our lives that the world was going through. I know it started before then, but it's amazing how you already go, we're already a few years removed from that time in the world.
Yeah.
I've been doing this long before that. And so it's interesting that you were able to coin that of 2015, because that says that this is coming up on almost a decade. And boy, I don't know if it's these white hairs or what you just said. I'm feeling older, man. I'm feeling older, So
yeah. You had your Harley Davidson that day. I remember.
oh my God, man. I still got my Harley.
Yeah, there you go.
I still got it. Oh, absolutely. I just don't have enough time to ride. That's the problem I got. Those are the biggest problems in life right now. Call it first world problems.
That is the challenge of every realtor, every human being. We're only given 24 hours each day. It's what you make of those 24 hours that determines where you're going to be in life. And if it's a professional goal you got, a personal goal, a spiritual goal, 24 hours is what you got, I got, and everybody else has got.
You know what, man? Such an awesome segue. I got to tell you, I was on a coaching call earlier this morning. I was talking to one of my clients, and this is actually outside of real estate at this point. We this whole thing has expanded well beyond the real estate industry in terms of the people that we are fortunate to be able to help when it comes to both life and business. Right. And we were talking, one thing was leading to another, and he's got his boys involved in the business with him. They're grown adults now. But he was saying how, one of them, he's he wants to just do what he's got to do and keep going, but not do much more. And they run a business. And this is relevant to everybody tuned in right now, is that we all, for the most part, are running a business. Yeah. And as you're doing that, you wonder sometimes, what do I have to do to have more success? How do I drive myself further? And not physically get in a car, but just drive ourselves to want more and do more and achieve more. And you just nailed it as well, is that we all got the same 24 hours in a day. And one thing that I was sharing with my client specifically, who's the actual owner of the whole thing, was, we've got to find something to light his fire. And it's not just getting up and going to work every day, but it's, what is that thing?
Yeah.
Why are we getting up, and why are we going to put specific amounts of time into the business side?
Yeah.
And then what are we going to do with that other time that we have available to us? And look, this is a, again, a great segue, because as we titled today's topic for today's show, how to maximize your performance as a realtor. And anybody that's tuned in that's not in real estate right now, stay tuned in, because I can assure you the things that Mike and I are going to talk about today are going to be very, very relevant for the most part to whether it's your business and or your life.
Yeah.
Now, to set that stage, Mike, just looking at what's going on out there and sort of getting a grander scale, the big picture at the moment. What's your take on the market that we're in? Where do you think that we're going over the next, 6 to 18 months, even with it?
Sure. So this is my 30th year, by the way, as a licensed realtor. It was March the 8th. You introduced me on stage at the AREA convention on my 30th anniversary.
That's right.
Right. So I have a bit of a kind of perspective. I've seen essentially every market. When I entered the market, they were still recovering from the 89-90 crash. And, I asked my broker back then, and it was a small little family business, how do you, make money? How do you do things? And what's this business of real estate like? And he said to me some words of advice that I've always shared with people. And it is, listen, people buy and sell real estate when the market's up, when the market's down, or when the market's flat. So my prediction for anybody that's listening, whether you're selling real estate or selling insurance, you're selling marketing like you do with kits, it's that what you want to do and what you want to have as your goal is what's going to happen for you. If you are assessing and basing your performance on the averages that you hear, and people say the market's up 10%, down 10%, interest rates going to come down a half a point, going to go up a half a point. Oh, it's going to snow. There's a tornado. It's raining. Like, honestly, who cares? What are you going to do when you wake up every morning? And if you're a realtor, I say this to my realtors, I have 650 that I directly manage here. I say, you wake up unemployed every day. So what are you going to do to go and find employment? And in our business, there's really a trifecta of things you do to find unemployment, right? Or employment. It's generating leads.
Yep.
It's booking appointments, and it's closing on contracts. There's so many other things that we do, but those three things is what you need to focus in on as a realtor, as any kind of person in life, quite frankly, right? You focus on those three core things, and then the results will come. So then you insulate yourself completely to whatever externally is happening in the world, right? The world is in chaos. It's on fire. And
It is
so
a crazy place out there right now.
It is. It is. But here's the miraculous thing. People today need to sell their homes. People today need to buy homes. People today need to rent homes, and people today as landlords need to find tenants to rent them too. Who cares what the external world looks like? Because if you did really worry about that, and I'm going to use the TREB stat a little bit here. I know you've got a global kind of audience here, but TREB is obviously the largest board in Canada, probably in the world, I think.
Yep.
Right now, the listing to sale ratio is 39%. Okay. So only 39% of all listings are selling, which is remarkable, right? Everybody thinks that everything sells on MLS, but it doesn't. But here's the other telling stat. Currently, right now, in the population of about 70,000 realtors, there's 0.67% sales per realtor right now. And so what I do is I take the actual sale and I multiply it by 2 because you've got the selling and the buying end, right? And if you take that and divide it by the population, it's 0.67%. When I entered real estate, it was about 9.5, 10% transactions per realtor per year. That has been in a steady decline. Last year, 2023, was 1.75. So if you think of it from that perspective, and you want to be part of the average, your average is you're only going to do 1.75 deals here in Toronto as an average realtor. You know, a brokerage is not going to survive with their realtors doing 1.75% transactions per year, right? You know, and so what are you going to do when you wake up? What is it that you're going to make as your efforts? And you know, realtors come into me all the time, and they'll say, "Mike, I'm struggling. I don't know what to do. The business is crazy. People are cutting commission. They're doing this." By the way, cutting commission is not a new thing. I have a report from 1998, authored by Mike Ferry, who's still around training, that talked about commission cutting. So today, if you want to buy into that kind of illusion fallacy, well, look at almost 30 years ago, we were talking about that as well. But when people come in, Dave, and they say, "I'm struggling, I don't know what to do," you know what the first question I ask them?
Are you building mindshare?
Are you building mindshare? Well, hey,
it's the first question I ask.
There you go, right? And like I said, I'm glad to have been on the cutting edge when you rolled this thing out. Now, the first thing I asked them, I said, "Well, tell me what you did yesterday. What did your day look like yesterday? What did it look like last week? What did it look like last month?" And I sit down with them and we try to put on pen on paper what that looked like. And you know what it looks like, Dave?
Tell me.
They did nothing.
Oh, I know.
They weren't doing activities.
I know.
They weren't making connections. Connectivity in this business is key, right? And so they asked me to diagnose a problem. So I diagnose it for them and say, "Listen, if you want to go forward and you want to actually put things in your pipeline or your hopper, or wherever we want to call that, then success leads those clues." You've heard that saying many times. Well, the success for us is, well, what did you do yesterday? When you didn't want to make 5 calls yesterday, and believe me, all you need to do is 5 calls a day, compound that every day, do the math on that. You're going to have people that are going to come and buy and sell and refer business with you. Guaranteed. Like, it is unbelievable, right?
Look, it's the roadblocks that they put up, though. Procrastination. 100%. I don't want to do it. What if they don't want to take my call? People don't want to talk on the phone. Who told you that?
Sure. And then the secret of that is calling. If I haven't talked to you in a long time, and Dave, you know, we hadn't connected in a long time. Aria's event was fantastic. You know, what are we talking about? Hey, Dave, we talked about hockey. Dave,
you and me, it's always hockey.
Are the Leafs going to win this year?
Well, yeah.
You know, I'm born in 1970. I've never seen a cup in my life. And I hope before I do leave this mortal world, we're going to get a cup in Toronto. But we weren't talking real estate. You and I were talking about things that we're connected to, that we enjoy. Guess what? The conversation is going to evolve to real estate. And so if people are worried about, hey, what do I talk about when I call Mr. and Mrs. Jones, Mr. and Mrs. Whatever, Smith, you talk about what the commonality is. The conversation is going to migrate to real estate 100% of the time. Right?
Yep. So let me ask you this then.
Yeah.
As we talk to having those conversations, we know there's a lot of pent up optimism around what may happen with the market itself. We also know from an interest rate perspective, there is some speculation that we may see something happen next, Tuesday, I believe?
June 5th.
If it's not, so Wednesday. So if it's not next week, they speculate July. If it's not July, they say September. We've got a lot of speculation going on.
Yeah.
All signs are pointing to the fact that we're going to see some sort of decrease this calendar year.
Right.
In saying that, what are your thoughts around what is going to happen to the market and what is going to happen to prices? And is any of this even relevant to holding off? Because this is the big stopping point right now. Well, the buyers, they can't really get the money and the interest rates are up. So people are waiting to see what happens. Do you believe people need to be waiting for the interest rates to come down? Do you believe that what do you think would happen to prices and to the market the minute we hear of this rate making a move?
Yeah. So I've been telling our realtors since November not to worry about the interest rate environment, to be going out there and helping buyers buying opportunities that have not been around for years, a decade, 15, 20 years. These are buying opportunities for people. Oh yeah, but Mike, the market's going to go down 5% or it's going to go down 10%. Great. Who cares? If that's what if you're holding an offer back or going into the market because you think it's going down 5%, then go out with your realtor and offer 5% below the asking price or what you think is the market value. Now, not every one of those things is going to actually become a successful transaction, but there will be somebody out there that needs to sell, right? They need to sell and they might take that. If that's your barrier to getting into the market, well, let's go around the barrier. We'll offer 5 or 10% down below. The interest rate, it's a quarter point is what people are speculating. I think it'll have not a material effect for people, but it will bring in some more buyers that are more engaged to the marketplace. But if you get into a half point, 3/4 point down the road, I think now you're going to flood with buyers. So again, if you're working with buyers and they're stalled, so you still have a window of time here to get into the marketplace. But I'll tell you, the market has gone up. So if you take and I'm talking Toronto market again here, if your market's different.
That's a good thing to say, because I know a lot of times I'll talk market, big city, Toronto, Vancouver, whatever. And some people say, well, what about the outskirts? What about the smaller? So it's
right. So you'll have to do your micro market analysis for that. But for TREB, if you take the end of December, this is the overall average number. So it's the bucket of all the sales, your detached, your condos, your towns, your semis, right? We've seen a 6.5% growth in value from the end of December to the end of April. Let that sink in. The actual average sale price has gone up 6.5%. It's, they do the year-over-year comparisons, a lot of people, which I'm not a big fan of that. Why? Because when we're going to do a CMA on a house, we're not looking back 12 months ago or 20.
And you can in this market. You can't.
You can't. You got to be what happened yesterday, 30 days ago type of thing. And so the market has, the trajectory is up in price. And we traditionally, if you look at the last 50 years in Toronto, the average of price appreciation is about 6 to 7% per year per annum, right? Like people are blown away when you show them that statistic. So we've essentially reached that already here at the end of April. What we're going to see in May, it could be determined upon some price points. I know in April, the higher 2.2 million plus segment went up. Like that went crazy. The 900 to kind of 2 million was stale. Under the 9, under the 7 was pretty hot. So the average prices, though, have this upward trajectory. When you lower the rates, and if you do bring in new buyers, which I think there will be initially, some people will tip their toes in the water. Now you're competing with a whole bunch more buyers. If you're working with buyers, get them engaged, because they're going to look back and you're going to be a hero to them 5 years from now. Because you've heard this in stock market investing. It's an analogy that I use in real estate too. It's never about timing the market. It's about time in the market. And it's true in stock investing, but my goodness, is it ever true in real estate?
Absolutely. And listen,
right?
I brought this up because, as you talked about, and I want to bring that full circle and connect the dots for everybody right now. As Mike, you were talking about the conversations you and I have and the topic of conversation that we always have together, which is very much revolved around life, sports, hockey.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, we will dip into the business world together because there's just a natural connection there that there has been for many years together. However, we don't message each other and say, "Hey, what do you think about the market?"
No.
We literally bitch and complain to each other about our Maple Leafs, and like we
Okay.
like talk about sports, and
Yeah.
then the conversation comes up. So now, for everybody tuned in again, you may say, "Well, I don't necessarily have that kind of connection with Judy or Bob. What do I talk to them about?" Now, I would say again, there are different things that we can do to role play that together, and we do a lot of that with our coaching clients. You know, how do you spark a conversation? Well, who are you talking to? How well do you know them? What kind of rapport do you have with them? In that same sense of the word, as you just mentioned now, where your buyers will look to you, and again, time in the market, no truer said than real estate, the buyers will look to you when you help them in the right way, and they will thank you. They will enjoy the experience, and they will even refer you to people because they felt good about it.
Yeah.
Well, in this case now, these phone calls, these conversations, communicate to educate, communicate to explore, right? So we're educating people and we're combating the narrative from the mainstream media, because that's always skies falling. We're going to talk to people, clarify, see if they got questions, communicate to explore. If they're asking questions, or if there's any inclination of just interest in knowing, let's explore a little further. Because if they ask the question, there's a reason they're asking it. There's some sort of interest, some sort of intrigue. And where does that lead to? Does that mean you get a deal tomorrow? No, not necessarily. Do you get a deal next month? No, not necessarily. Next year? Maybe not. 5 years from now? Very good possibility. And again, the ROI on that is absolutely massive. Now,
It's huge.
I want to go backwards here because I switched topics on you and purposely when you were talking about some of the things that need to be done. It's like, what did you do yesterday? Because I loved what you were saying there.
Yeah.
Right. I want to come back to that now and say, you mentioned a few things. And I want to almost ask you to bring those back up in terms of, I guess, what are those non-negotiables that everybody should be focused on a daily? And I guess maybe I'd lump that together with, how do you keep track, or how do you suggest that people keep track of those daily efforts?
Yeah. So I designed my own training program years and years ago when I got into management.
I remember.
Yeah.
So
So
you guys got no idea how far back we go.
yeah, exactly. So, 1994 to 2000, end of 2006, I sold. So for those of you that are in the selling side of the business, I worked in your side at a very high level. And then when I got into management and leadership, I essentially took what I used as my platform to sell real estate and brought it to the table to the realtors that work with me. And I've literally trained thousands and thousands upon thousands of realtors in our business. I'm a student of Floyd Wickman, for some of you old people out there, and I classify myself as old. I was a sweat hog, and a lot of the core stuff of his stuff, the dialogues are Floyd's. But because I was an athlete, so I played hockey and went through the whole hockey community. In Brampton, I became a coach, a sponsor, on the executive, and really elevated myself in that world so that my cold calling, my lead generation was done in hockey arenas. And in the summertime, it'd be baseball diamonds. But essentially, I'm out there trying to generate that lead from those people. But it's a fun social way to go about doing it. There's no kind of hardcore selling tactics. So what I kept myself on track with was I created this points system. And so I looked at all these lead generation activities that you could do. So let's take two that people are definitely afraid of. Cold calling. So that's somebody you have no idea who you're calling, or door knocking. And I'll tell you right now, there's people in my office that make 7-figure incomes that do door knocking. Let that sink in. 7 figures door knocking. In fact, one of my guys is in the top 35, under 35 in the country for Royal LePage, and he's a door knocker, and he's a young kid. He's in his early 30s now. So you create these activities, and these activities get a point. Flyers, and I'm kind of going to point your business out. You do a lot of the kit stuff, right? And that's where we first knew each other.
Yep.
So I would give like a quarter point to getting a kits flyer out to somebody. I'd give a 1 point if you knew that person and it would go out. A cold call would be 1 point. A door knock would be 1 point. A referral, I would give you 10 points. So essentially, I have this matrix developed that At the end of the week, you would be able to count up your points. And my target for new agents that get into my kind of program would be 250 lead generation activity points. So that when the week was over, the mindset is this mind share is, well, maybe I didn't get a listing. Maybe I didn't sign up a buyer and a buyer representation agreement. Maybe I didn't do an APS, agreement purchase sale. But look, I did 250 points, lead generation, proactive activity points. This was a success. And maybe the next week I didn't do anything. And the following week I didn't do anything. But you're compounding all these activities to this point in time where they will come out, they'll bear fruit. So you're doing the farming kind of mentality and the hunting mentality all at the same time. So we've heard like do the farming, that's a strategy in lead generation, or you do direct hunting. I do a hybrid with my point system and teach people that. And I have 7-figure income people that use my system still today. I've never monetized it. I'm kind of what they call like open source or whatever. So I share what I did because my intention is to never go back into selling. And so I literally open the doors. Here's the window of how I operated my business at a high level when I sold. And I share that with as many people. And I share with people that are not even in our company, quite frankly, right? So, because I just want to make a better industry, a better person. Because at the end of the day, our fiduciary responsibility is to the consumer. And if we don't treat the consumer properly, correctly, they're going to complain to our politicians, our MPPs, who will make these changes in legislation. And that's the other part of what I do at a very high level. I'm in government relations. You said I was the president of REB last year. I've been for the last 4 or 5 years at the tip of the spear on all this TRESA stuff, the Realtor cooperation. I was actually in the legislature in the front row when we passed that 4 years ago. So, we got to take care of each other and the consumer, because if we can do that, we just build a better community out there. We don't want to have ourselves looked upon as being used car salesmen and things, because we're not. I know so many high quality people that have integrity and ethics. And for me, I just try to share that kind of vision with everybody that comes into my world and my sphere, right? But it's and I wrote my thesis too. You talked about that.
Yep.
So I wrote that I went back and did a master's degree in 2004. I wrote my thesis in 2005 and I defended it in 2006. Then I became a leader in management, right? So kind of that was my track. And it was called Performance Predictors for Realtors. And I created all kinds of assessment tools. So I have literally thousands upon thousands of research data points that I've used now over the years that one day will become a book, right? And it'll essentially, you'll be able to compare yourself to an ideal realtor on a whole bunch of, like it's a 10-point system. And there's 10 actually variables of what you do in real estate. You'll be able to plot on a graph to see where you are, right? Really
Mike, I remember talking about that a number of times together. And that's why I wanted to ask you today, like to simplify it all, like right here, right now, for anybody tuned in, specific bogies that people could be measuring themselves on. Okay. So we talked about, what did you do yesterday?
Yeah.
We talked about some of these daily non-negotiables, which there's obviously a lot more to dive into with that. If I was to look to myself though, and I look at the end of the day and I think to myself, what did I do today? Were there certain things that I did or didn't do? Like you mentioned one of them, you said phone calls, 5 a day.
Yeah.
And again, we're right in line. We know that. I say to people 3 to 5 a day, right? That's about what, 1,800 calls a year?
Imagine
that. Think about how many deals you're gonna take out of that. And I would ask you, and I would challenge everybody right now. I just want you to think about how many calls you made last week. Okay. And if you at the end of the day, at the end of the year, pardon me, even sit back and say, yeah, I probably made a few hundred calls, a few hundred. Yet we're sitting here saying to you, 3 to 5 a day, which isn't some mountain to climb, will actually get you to over 1,000 a year. Yeah. Think about the production you did last year. And if you just multiplied those calls you made by 2, by 3, by 4, think about how many more deals you would have done.
100%.
And set yourself up to do. Because I love what you said before. You used the word hunter. And that's one of my favorites right there. Right? We've got to be out there hunting every day. You brought up cold calling and door knocking. I'm going to come back to this lead gen idea in a moment. But specific bogies, what would you say if you could give people 3 or 5 of those right now? measure yourself on this, 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 and this. What would you say to that?
So the others would be how good are you at persuading people, right? So you're persuading people using your integrity and ethics. So you're not doing that in a malevolent type of way. So that's when you're at a listing presentation or a buyer representation agreement. How good are you at persuading and navigating them to that, signing that, whatever you're looking for, a listing agreement or a buyer agency agreement? So the ability to persuade people. I would say the two that I finished my top 10 list with is, how are you in the short term with people and managing that relationship? And I actually, over my whole career as a leader, I think that we do a pretty good job, quite frankly, overall in the short term, because when we do get that client, we're on that client doing our very best. But the second part of that, how good are you in the medium and long-term relationship with that client? So you've done the transaction with them, or you've opened the door. In the medium term, that's 6 months going forward. Long term is 5 years. Are you staying in touch with that person? Are you and you talked about it before, like the media likes to get in and have conversations, and
Yep.
they become what I call the voice and source of information. You as a realtor need to step in front of the media or any other noise they're going to hear and become that voice and source. You can't be the voice and source if you've disappeared, right? If you've done the transaction with the client,
Great point.
and then now you're gone, that client's going to think, oh, Mike Kennelly, all he cared about was that fee. He's disappeared. He was amazing. This guy courted me like there was no tomorrow, and put the ring on my finger. We went to the altar, we got married, and then he disappeared. What happened, right? And so coming back to staying in touch and engaged, your platform, your kids' platform, is one of the most amazing platforms for that. And yeah, exactly. Like I've been to your facility. You showed me it's the size of a house, your printing machine that I remember, right?
Yeah.
And you have this whole assembly line of stuff going out. But you need to invest in those types of things. You said it earlier. We're a business. If you don't treat this as a business individually, the Mike Kennelly real estate business, then you're not going to actually have the results long term in your career. You might become what I call a transactional realtor,
right?
And you'll get a transaction here or there, but you're not going to build a transformational business that's built for the long term. That's built on relationships. That's built on trust. We say it all the time. You and me, we know you, like you, and love you.
It's
right?
cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason.
It's so true,
right?
So true, right?
So here, you mentioned. I love the fact that you brought up the cold calling and the door knocking.
Yeah,
I know there was people that sort of like their jaw dropped. I know some people fell off their chairs. I hope nobody ran into a curb while you were driving. But seriously speaking, Mike, and listen, I'm from a cold call perspective. We have a stigma of selling air duct cleaning. Okay.
Right.
And I do believe that making cold calls is not going to be as effective as the door knock, only for the fact that at the door, you see me, you don't just hear me. We can actually exchange something. I can give you something to touch. And when we start getting in the depths of like the neuroscience,
sure,
and neuromarketing and why people make decisions the way they do, if you can impact not just the emotions, but as well the motor skills, you can get to the deeper part of the brain where people make decisions. Hence where, again, I say that in backing up the door knock over the cold call.
Right.
All that said, I still do a ton of cold calling myself for my own business, because I know that when I reach out to people, and these are people that are within the industry that maybe I've never spoken to, that might or might not have heard of me, but I do have a platform that has potentially been heard of. And therefore, I mean, I hope so, but I know that it's not reality that everybody has, but I can use that as a lead in, as an open door to a conversation.
Yeah.
And not go into either of those channels thinking that the first time I speak to somebody, they're going to pull out their pen and want to sign a check.
Absolutely not.
This is about building rapport and relationships. So now you brought both of those up. I guess I just wanted to further emphasize the fact that, when we were, again, back in that time a few years ago during the pandemic, we were told no open houses. We were told don't door knock. And I guess I would tell you that what I'm seeing, and maybe even pose the question to you, I'm seeing that both of those channels, the door knock and the open house, are some of the some of the best channels you could be using right now actually to find new opportunities.
100%. Listen, I'll come clean here. I'm not me as a realtor. I did those things when I started my career. So if you're brand new in the business, you really should be looking at doing a lot of things and find the ones that are the most comfortable for you. But I evolved my business very quickly into the relationship side of the business. But when I was doing door knocking and I was doing the cold calling through the Floyd Wickman program, this guy was chock-block full of dialogues. And my favorite, I call it the $1 million Floyd Wickman dialogue. It's the if I could, would you dialogue. And so, if I'm making a real cold call to Dave Greenspan here, and I'm saying, hey, Dave, if I could show you how I could sell your house in the least amount of time, would you be interested in hearing more? That's a question that's going to generate, for most calls, a yes. And that's where you can move on. Hey, Dave, when would be a good time I could meet? Would tonight at 5 o'clock or 8 o'clock be better? Right. So I'm doing 2 closes. One is the sharp close, the if I could, would you? And you can fill in the blanks. If I could, would you? And the other is when would be a good time? That's the alternative choice of close. Because you are salespeople. Let's realize that first and foremost. And so you need to develop the language of selling and the language of the generating the lead, booking the appointment, and closing on the contract. Those are, like I said before, that's a trifecta. Those are simple words that I've shared with so many realtors that if they use them properly, they're going to book an appointment. Does it mean you're coming out with a listing, or does it mean you're coming out with a buyer agency agreement sign? No, but you're getting in front of people and you're getting the experience. You're really practicing the career of real estate. I trained and coached a lot of hockey players in my life. And these guys will tell you, the ones that make it to the top, they're practicing 3 to 4 times that they're playing, right? So you want to get out there and, I've given you a dialogue here, 2 dialogues, practice those things and try them out in your business. See if that happens. If it doesn't work for you, well, then you can shift gears, right? Not everything's for everybody. But, I'll tell you that the best athletes, the best actors, the best anything in life, they practice their trade, their vocation like there's no tomorrow. Again, what did you do yesterday? What did you do last week? It doesn't all have to be your day was all full of lead generation activities. It could be, I went on a coaching call with David Greenspan and David said this, perfect, put that down, because that's all cumulative to building who you are, creating this, machine of real estate that you want to be, or whatever else you're doing in life, right?
So, and great points there. Now, as we talk about the marketing and the things that we're doing to generate these new opportunities and create the connections, again, you've said it multiple times today, and I think that it's really important that I just reemphasize it and sort of echo it over and over again, as we always do. It's a people business. It's built on relationships. The more people you connect with, the more relationships you build, the more opportunity you create. Now, Mike, do you believe that online ads are the path to success in real estate?
So the online world really took off after I stopped selling real estate. So I'm not calling an expert in that space, but my kind of intuitive appreciation of what happens there, that there's a lot of effort that you need to put into qualifying those types of leads. So I'll have a lot of my realtors come in, they've invested in these types of platforms, these online lead generation activities. And when I listen to them, I'll tell them, it sounds like you're a miner, right? It sounds like you're a mining company like Barrick that's mining for gold. And so gold, Barrick's looking for that little piece of gold, but they got to go through tons and tons of rock. And I say to them, if that's what you want to do, if that's what lights your fire every morning to get up, because you're unemployed. Remember that again, you're unemployed. If that's what it is, go for it, right? If you need to talk to 1,000 people or 500 or 100, whatever the ratio looks like for those online leads, then make it happen. Embrace it. Make that your focal point of your lead generation activities, because it all surrounds lead generation in our business, regardless of what anything else is. If you're not generating leads proactively, again, I'll go back to my thesis. I researched all kinds of other papers that were done in the real estate space. Now, I wrote my paper 18 years ago. There wasn't a lot of papers done academically, but there was one really good one at the University of Notre Dame in the States, J.M. Krant. If you ever want to look at it, it's looking at proactive behaviors in success for real estate agents. And it really does factor into how you are going to perform, right? So if you are not proactively out there doing something, and these online leads are a source of or an example of being proactive, because you're actually putting the effort in, you're paying whatever provider to do it, you're actually making something happen where there's going to be a response. And the response may be not what you want because it's a lot of rock to find the gold, but so be it. You're making that effort. So I think, is online something you need to focus on? Sure. I would have more my online if I was selling again, more like a online business card presence. Here's Mike Kennelly, here's my resume, here's that kind of stuff. But I don't know if I'd really be looking at creating some lead generation monster platform off of that. But to me, I'm a belly to belly kind of person. It's face to face. I think that is going forward. We talk about, there's people talk about AI now. It's going to destroy real estate. In 30 years, David, I've heard so many things in technology that were going to destroy real estate, and it's not ever happened because people still want to talk to people. And I don't think AI is going to be able to sell directly a house. They want to have a person like you, me, that sifts through the complexity of a real estate transaction as a human being, right? And unless AI is there, I don't think we're going to worry about that kind of world at this stage in our lives. Right?
It's funny you brought that up because I was about to ask you about that as well. And I will say, to the online ad perspective, the miner, not age-wise, but do you want to continue mining? How hard do you want to chip away? Do you want to dig through a ton of rock to try to find a deal? If that's what you want to do, just like you said, hey, you can do it.
Yeah.
That being said, I believe, and again, we've said it a few times today, I said it a moment ago, it's a people business. And when you are working the contact list and you are working the group of people that you know, and you are going down that road with them, then you will have lower hanging fruit. You will have a quicker path to more opportunity. I, for one, still beg the question, who are all of these people going online to some random website to see some random property so that some random realtor can contact them, when we know that 79% of this business is built off a repeat referral, which therefore means that most people are going to contact somebody they know.
100%. 100%. I mean, 79 to me is actually low. I would say it's higher, but if you got a stat that says that.
Well, it's 70 to 90. 70 to 90.
In
that range is where we normally see most agents are saying that that's the bulk of their business come from group number one, the contact list, the people they know, like, and trust.
That's right.
So again, where are all these random people? And oftentimes when somebody does make the phone calls, well, how did you get my number? And just because somebody clicked on a property doesn't mean that they're necessarily ready to buy a house.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't mean you can't build a rapport with them. Don't take me the out of context here. But it is a much harder, longer slug. And there is a lot of support that needs to be in place to make these leads come to life. You also have to have a ton of patience.
Oh.
So now 100%. You brought up AI.
Yes.
And it's a hot topic, right? Yeah. You've talked about being in the business as long as you have been, the roller coaster of different ideas you've seen come down the pipe. And we've seen it from websites, lead generation, chatbots. We've got AI in place now. I mean, the social media obviously came in at one point. Video has been a hot thing. Podcasts, obviously. AI is the thing right now.
Yeah.
And I would first throw up a big caution banner to everybody and say, look, it's the thing right now. Do I think it's going away? I don't. Do I think that it's something you should look into and maybe find ways to integrate? Sure. But do I believe that people who are maybe not on the up and up with all the tech, but do a really good job at real estate need to shift everything they're doing to integrate AI? I don't. I will come back to it and say it's a people business.
Yeah.
And where you should be focused on building rapport with people, not having a bot, robot, chat bot, anything, do it for you. Because that's not where the relationship's coming from. It's not going to be able to have that conversation, Mike, between you and I about what our hearts say and the brains say about our hockey.
Right.
It won't do that. It's going to miss that entire element. But I guess again, to the question, what is your take, your opinion? What have you seen on the implementation of it here in real estate?
So I really like some of the elements that I've seen. So I went to the NAR convention last year. It was in Anaheim. and there was a presentation on AI, and there's been a lot of presentations, a lot of the big events out there. And this one presentation showed some tech that actually is now embedded in the TREB system. So TREB is actually at the cutting edge and forefront of a lot of this AI technology. And so if you can embrace some of the tools that can make your business better. And so one of the things they showed us was a picture of a cottage, and it was the back deck looking out to, I can only assume it was Lake Rosso or Lake Joseph up in the Muskokas. And the AI bot was, you could ask a question, find other similar properties that have in the system, the database, that look like this picture. And all of a sudden AI was able to do that search for you. So using an AI platform to minimize your searching times is where I think there's a benefit. If you have and struggle in creating content as far as written content for an ad or an email, you struggle with things like that, you can use these AI ChatGPT kind of platforms to create a very polished system. Again, embrace that kind of thing. But the day of Big Brother AI coming out, what's the Terminator movie there? They call it
Schwarzenegger.
I don't know, the one that destroyed the whole world. That's not happening as far as I'm concerned. There was whatever I can't remember. But anyways, AI used and embraced to help complement what you can do in your business. And take that, when we talked about time, I think we started with time. We only have 24 hours. AI can actually compress your day down by eliminating some of those tasks in time. I stopped selling in 2006. I had to drive from wherever I was to wherever I had to go to get a signature on a contract, or I could send it by fax if somebody had a fax on the other side. Today, everybody's got email. I could put it in DocuSign or AuthentiSign or any other platform, sitting here in my office, zip it over, and I got a signature on anything I need. What did that do? Well, the technology helped me save time, right? AI will help you save time. And it's where it's going to go. Look, I'm not a tech guy at all. I'm a technological, novice, quite frankly. Before we logged on here, I had my tech guy come in, make sure that I did log on to somebody else's podcast. And it's AI. If you embrace the basics of it, it's going to help you with time, save you time.
It's okay. So I'm going to switch to that topic in just like a millisecond here. It's interesting because as I've got a knowledge on the technology, and again, I don't sit here and say that I'm some whiz. There's a good understanding. I would suggest to everybody that a lot of the stuff that we are hearing about, AI, the idea of it has already been in place in a lot of the technology that we use for a long time already.
Yeah.
We've now just made it bright and shiny. And I guess maybe that's where I'm going to put the bow on this part of the conversation, everybody, is say, don't get caught up in the bright and shiny. Stay focused on the things that you know work to grow this business. And as long as you put in the effort, you will get the results.
Yeah.
Now,
100%.
as we talk about time, and this has to be one of my favorite topics, because I do believe that, in July, well, I do believe, Mike, and I agree with you. It's only 24 hours in a day. No, seriously though, it's we all only have that time. Now to that, understanding the way a realtor's world works and the way an entrepreneur's world works, it's almost like, hey, the phone rings or somebody needs, I got to go. I got to do. Do you though? And I don't believe that you should. I believe that we need to have some sort of structure to our day, because coming right back as well to some of those daily bogies that we need to have, some of those things that we need to do to be building the mind share, growing our business, connecting with people, making those 5 phone calls. I believe these things need to be planted into our schedule so we make sure we actually do them. Otherwise, a day goes by, then a week goes by, then a month goes by, and you go, well, why am I not making the money that I want to make? So do you think it's possible to work to a schedule and to work to a system in real estate? Or alternatively, do you think we just need to be on call and react at any time somebody calls us?
No, I think you have to have a schedule. a doctor has a schedule. You just call your doctor up at 8:30 on Sunday morning and say, hey, listen, I'm coming over because I got the sniffles. You call your lawyer at 10 p.m. No, they have a schedule, and you are running your own business. If you want to have a schedule that's 8 to 8 or whatever it is, then knock yourself out. But you have to commit to creating what that looks like in your business, because if you don't, you are going to run from appointment to appointment, and you're going to burn yourself out, quite frankly. And listen, we're all here to help the consumer. If you're burnt out, you can't help yourself, let alone the consumer, right? So yes, you have to put a schedule in place. And I've always said and advocated, put your personal time off in the schedule first. You got a young family, David. I've got a family. That's what I commit to first in my schedule. I have more of a corporate kind of life now, where it's more business oriented. I have an office, I come to it, all that kind of stuff. I don't do 9 to 5, just in case the owner of my company says, I don't do 9 to 5. I do way beyond that, but I do have a structure, right? And you all
jokes aside, we know you do. There's no way you'd achieve what you have if you didn't.
Right, exactly, right. Thank you. And so that structure for the individual realtor has to be in place. And if you do go run out to an appointment because somebody has called you, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like the dog whistle, right? You're whistling and the dog's coming running. I don't want to say we're dogs, right? But you get my drift, right? Like somebody calls and then you're running to them. Be more in control and be more selective, by the way. Select who you want to work with. We talk about know you, like you, trust you. Shouldn't you have the same kind of vision for the people you're going to work with? Shouldn't you know them, like them, and trust them too? Are you working with people that are working with 3 other realtors behind the scenes? Are you working with somebody that thinks of you as a used car salesman and all they want you to do is give them a rebate, right? We make these decisions to go work with almost anybody. And those types of people you work with, believe you me, they draw away all that positive energy that you have for all of the clients that do like you, know you, and trust you. So you need to be selective in your career, because you're not going to change their behavior. You're not going to go in and make them all of a sudden, change everything. Maybe over the long term you can, but initially it's not. And they're going to drain away, as I said, that energy, those circadian rhythms I've talked to you about before, right? In your day. And that's all you need. You need one person to bring that storm cloud into your day. Get rid of those people, right? I know Brian Buffini personally. I was part of his, about 12 years ago, he came to Canada, filmed one of his programs on actually training brokers. And I got into it. And he always talks about, you got 5 clients. If one of them is he says Jack, and I won't say the other 3-letter word, but it's a bad word.
Hey, it's the My Share podcast. Say anything you want on here.
Okay. And that one Jack, person takes the storm clouds for the other 4. And that's not what you want to do. Get rid of the jerk. Get rid of the jerk. Focus on the 4, because those 4 people statistically over time will refer 2 to 3 people per year to you, right? So now you've got 8 to 12 referrals to people that you're servicing properly. Who do you think the jerk's going to refer you to? The jerk hangs around with other jerks. So you're going to get that guy that's going to call you, oh, I want you to give half your commission away. I want you to do this for me. I want you to let somebody else compete for that business. We talked about the lead generation online stuff. You have everybody competing for one person. Don't compete with those people. Go to the individual source with the relationship, right?
Well, let's take that one. Let's take that one full circle now, because you and I, as big hockey fans, and we've said that a few times on the show, and I'm sure people are like, guys, we know, we heard you. You like hockey. No, but stay with me here, because if you're listening to the show, you're not watching it today. And thank you for listening. I really appreciate you. I do want to say that Mike over his left shoulder has a Rick Nash jersey. Team Canada, Rick Nash. Now, Rick was a superstar in the NHL for many years. I was really looking forward to him coming to Toronto. Mike actually tells us a story about why he didn't come to Toronto, but we won't share that one today. But Mike knows that because Mike actually is buddies with Rick. Mike developed a relationship with Rick. Mike was able to help Rick with some real estate. But it took patience.
Oh, yeah.
Mikey, share that one with us for a moment. Because look, I guess what we're doing is we're bringing it together. We made a connection with somebody somewhere. It led to another contact. It led to getting to know Rick and the family. It didn't happen overnight that you did some business together, but through staying in touch, building relationship, know you, like you, trust you, working the people you know versus the people you don't know, you were able to help a worldwide superstar in the game of hockey find, I guess, a dream property.
Yeah.
Tell us about that story. I know it's a cool story. I just thought it'd be an interesting one to kind of tie it together today for everybody.
Yeah. So, you never know who you're dealing with, right? Or you never know who somebody will become that you're dealing with. And
you said referrals too, right?
Oh, exactly. Right.
Yep.
So as I said earlier, I got involved in the minor hockey community in Brampton. So the winter time months would be me coaching, AAA hockey teams. In the summer would be all-star baseball teams. And so I kind of every year would get, 18, 16 new families part of my database. Now, not everybody bought and sold with Mike, even though I was their coach and all that kind of stuff, but it was adding to that database. And it was probably like 1995, my second year in the business. I came along Rick's father, and Rick is the younger son, and his of my friend James, and the older brother is my middle brother's age. My middle brother was a professional hockey player as well in Europe, and so I knew James, the father, through James the son, through my brother. And Rick was this young kid that 4 or 5 years old would come out on the ice. In shinny hockey and just have these big bright eyes. But over the years, I was cultivating this relationship with the father because, Rick is a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old kid playing hockey up in Brampton. So is the brother with my brother. You never envision what's going to happen, when they turned 16 or 15, when he got drafted to the OHL. And, he was at 18 drafted number 1 in the NHL. Dude, there's no way I thought of that. And there was no way I was
number 1.
No way. Number 1. There's only one person a year that does that. And so
what year was that?
Good call. 2002, maybe 2003.
Okay.
That kind of
okay. Yep.
Somewhere around there. And but you never go in anticipating that's going to be the outcome of the relationship. So I was helping the father trying to find rentals over the course of many years. And believe it or not, never found him one. But I always still helped. It was part of my pipeline and part of the community that I was building in hockey. And then, one day the dad says, okay, I'm ready to buy something. This is before Rick is, the mega superstar. So I sold the dad a, traditional average price property back in Brampton. It was probably 210 back then. It was a detached home, or 220 or 230, whatever. And then
you could buy real estate for $210,000.
Listen, my first sale in real estate was in April 1994. A detached 2,100 square foot home in Brampton, $167,500. I'll always remember that. Detached, 4-bedroom, 2,100 square foot house. I don't know what that's worth today, but it ain't 167.
Wow.
But anyways, with Rick's story, Rick.
No, add a few more zeros to that.
Exactly. Rick goes into the OHL, plays for the London Knights. He's on a team with Corey Perry and a couple other guys that make the NHL. And Rick is lighting it up down there to the point where he's now being scouted at the NHL level. And the Columbus Blue Jackets trade up to get the number 1 draft pick because they coveted Rick. And so Rick gets to be the number 1 draft pick. Again, I don't even think about any real estate things because, I'm servicing them in a relationship. And Rick plays his, rookie contract year out. And in his last year was the lockout. And his last year before that rookie contract expired, he won the goal scoring title in the NHL. There's only 3 players in the history of the NHL that are teenagers that win the goal scoring title. One, pretty much everybody gets, Wayne Gretzky. The other was Jimmy Carson. Number 3 is Rick Nash. So Rick became a superstar. Lockout happens. He goes over to Switzerland to play hockey on one of the Swiss professional teams. That's when my brother actually lost his professional ticket because all these NHL guys flew out there and they had this cap of 3 players. So he played with his best friend, Joe Thornton, and Martin St. Louis. And that was for mine. Can you imagine?
Like, if you know hockey, this is wild.
They won the World Cup hockey. These three Canadian guys won it for this Team Switzerland team. Anyways, he comes back, and he's going to be the first real superstar to negotiate on a new collective bargaining agreement. As he comes back, he's telling me, look, I want to buy a cottage. I want to buy up in Lake Rosso, Lake Joseph. And I said to him right away, I go, I don't sell up there. It's not my market. I'll refer you up there. He says, no way. You're part of this because you're part of the whole family. I watched what you did with my mom and dad all those years. You're a part of this. I don't care what you have to do. You're going to be riding, shotgun on this thing. I'm like, okay, perfect.
Nice.
And so he said he had this kind of price range he wanted to look at. Believe it or not, it was one of the properties we were going to go look at was Steve Avery. I don't know if you remember that name in NHL. He was the real nut job, played for the New York Rangers. Anyhow, he then negotiates his contract. And I got a funny story to close the loop on that one too. He had been hoping for $10 million over 5 years, right? His dream would have been 12 and a half over 5. So he wanted between 2 and 2.5 million. Now you and me sitting here are like, wow. And this is money back in 2005-ish money, right? Like that was to him all the world. Well, he ends up getting $27.5 million for 5 years. Right?
Think about the cottage he bought there, right?
Right. So he calls me up. He's just arrived back from Columbus on the Columbus owner's jet, private jet. And he calls his mom and dad. They're the first ones. I think I'm the third, maybe the fourth call to say, listen, we're not looking at this price point. We're looking at this price point, which was five times what we were looking for. And to put it in perspective, me selling at that point, that purchase point would have been the accumulation of about 2 or 3 months of what I would typically do in selling real estate. Okay. And so we go up there and over the course of the weekend, we buy this beautiful property up on Lake Rosso. Driving up there, I asked him the question. I was up there, driving up there with his dad and him. And, these guys get all kinds of these endorsement deals. So we were driving up in this beautiful, I think it was a Cadillac Escalade, one monster SUV. And I said to him, I go, Rick, what the hell are you using me for? At your level now, they got all these people to take care of you and it's this and that. He goes, Mike, you're not a shooter. I watched how you worked with my parents. You took care of them when nobody else did. You answered their questions. You were there when a lot of people weren't. Why wouldn't I come to you? So the integrity that kid had, he was a kid, right? At that time, like 21 years old, $27.5 million for 5 years. His next contract, by the way, was in the 60 million range, right? So this kid made $100 million probably over the career. But it stuck with me always. And I share that with people to say, you never know what you're doing today and the impression and the memory it leaves with people. He was a young kid watching me take care of his mom and dad when other people wouldn't, right? Here's a kid, by the way, older brother. Dad had a cube van. It only had 2 seats, the driver's and the passenger. And because in Brampton hockey, typically what happens there is you're going to, say, Oakville or Niagara Falls or Stony Creek, and they lay out the whole, like the novice right to, your peewee or bantam level. So Rick was in the back of the cube van lying on hockey bags. That's how that kid traveled to hockey games, because the older brother, of course, got the other chair. Now this kid was flying first class in a private jet. And, full circle. So the story there, the message is you never know what you're investing in, but if you take care of people, it will take care of you. Full circle, many, many years later, I'm flying out of Fort Lauderdale Airport in Florida, right? Yeah. I was down for a convention for LePage. And so I'm flying out and I'm sitting there with my wife and my kids, because we made a trip out of it. My wife's family's our sister lives in Miami. We went to Disney, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there waiting, for the Air Canada call to go board the flight. And all of a sudden I hear behind me, Dougie, Dougie, Dougie. Well, I'm thinking Dougie Gilmore. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I turn around, it was Doug McLean.
Oh.
Doug McLean was the GM for Rick when he signed that big contract, right? That I helped Rick then buy this big cottage for. And so people are taking pictures with Doug McLean. And I said to my wife, "Well, that's the GM, right? He knows me from nobody. I've never talked to him. She goes, you got to go and tell him the story about Rick and, thank him because,
Yeah, it's true, right? Yeah.
So, I said, no, I can't do that. I'm not that kind of guy. And anyways, he shows up. He's now in front of me. And this short little lady comes out of the duty free. She was buying something at the duty free. And now he's standing. My wife's like, you got to go. So I stood up. I'm 6'1", about 210, 215. And Doug's about the same. I put my hand really forcefully. I don't know why I did it. On his shoulder. He looks back. I said, we have a mutual friend. He's like, okay. I go, and I said, Rick Nash. And I said some things that only somebody like me would know about Rick.
Right.
Well, his like radar went down. We had this like 10-minute conversation where I shared this story with him. And he's like, people think high performing athletes are jerks, right? They're this. He goes, that story just tells me exactly what Rick was all about. That's why we drafted him number 1.
So cool.
He goes, it's that kind of integrity. And so I'm like, this is great. And I said, I'll tell Rick I talked to you, and he'll tell Rick, blah, blah, blah. I get back to Canada. It was like a Sunday flight. My brother, who was the professional one, right, professional hockey player in Europe, he calls me up. It's Monday, 1:00 or thereabouts. He goes, hey, did you bump into Doug McLean? I'm like, yeah, I haven't told anybody, right?
Yeah, yeah.
He goes, he's on Sportsnet talking about you.
No way.
Get out. Right? So, moral of the story, right?
Yeah.
The moral of the story is you just never know what you're going to do, what impact you're going to have. I never dreamed that working a relationship like that would evolve to that. That jersey there is one of his jerseys. It was the 2010 Olympic team. He was on the line, Jerome McGinley, Sidney Crosby, and Rick Nash, right? That was the line. They did shift it up a couple of games in, but he was the first line starting for Team Canada. He's got 2 gold medals. He doesn't have a Stanley Cup. Superstar. What a great kid. All developed in a hockey rink, right? In relationships, having conversations.
And there it comes, man. There it comes right there. And that's why I wanted to wrap all this up with that story today. I've heard it before. And when we really break it down, and again, everybody tuned in, really, really hone in on that. This wasn't so much about who's Rick. Although, yes, of course, that's a piece of the story. Where Mike's going with all that is you never know. Have the conversations with people, connect with people. Do not judge a book by its cover.
No.
The more you connect with people, the more you open up that dialogue, again, the more opportunity you're going to create. And as you're looking to perform and maximize your performance in real estate and maximize your performance in life, smile, be friendly with people, make connections. Don't make it all about money or business.
No.
Good things will happen, but you have to have patience for it.
You got it.
Now, Mike, as we wrap this all up, one question I got to ask you, which I ask every single one of our guests at the end of our show, looking to see what your response to this one is. You go through your day, you do everything you possibly can, whatever that looks like. You wrap it all up, you go home, and it's the end of the night. How do you know it's been a successful day for you?
So as I talked about, I had a platform, a point system platform for me. So if I went home and my goal that day was 100 points and I only got 50, again, I'm a hockey guy, right? So that's my goal.
Yep. We like to put pucks in the net. Yep.
My penalty minutes, all these things are aggregated into, this is the snapshot of the player, Mike. And so when I'd come home, if I didn't actually knock it out of the park for what my goal that day was, well, that was my inspiration for the next day. So I had to start the next day to make up for the day before and then do that day's, right? So that was how I looked at it. And you never put your head on your pillow being frustrated or being angry. I say this advice to everybody, right? Because you can get frustrated and angry in this business. Oh, these darn buyers, they're just lookers, they're tire kickers. And all these sellers want is me to give my fee away, blah, blah, blah. Don't go to bed being angry at those comments from those people and being frustrated, because those, you're going to dream, right? I mean, most of us don't remember our dreams, but if we were remembering our dreams, you're playing back some of that stuff, that nonsense, right? So you want to not go to bed angry. If you're going to be angry about something, here's my word of advice. I'm not a doctor, but I did study psychology.
Yep.
Be angry for 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes max, and move on, right? Because you can't control it, right? Or what are you going to do? What's your reaction when you're going to be angry? You're going to go hit somebody? Well, that's not going to be a good outcome for you. So let it go, release it. Because I'll tell you, you call it mind share, I call it mindset, right? It's what's between the 6 inches between these two ears is where all the gold is. And man, we have 60,000 plus thoughts a day, buddy. And most of them are routine thoughts, like 55,000 of them, 58,000, same thing. I wake up in the morning, I gotta brush my teeth, I gotta take a shower, gotta eat, put my clothes on, blah, blah, blah. It's these unique nuggets that you get during the day, this mindset stuff that can transform yourself. Hopefully today, people picked up a couple of things that maybe they could use, right? I mean, certainly our stories are fun. And I tell people too, when they want to create their kind of scripts and how they do things, use the PSA format, principle, story, application. So you want to sell a principle. What's the principle? Well, you should list with me because blah, blah, blah. Here's the story why you should do that, blah, blah, blah. And here's the application for that, blah, 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 right? Principle, story, application. Create your own. Don't copy Mike Cannelly's or David Greenspan's or whoever in your mind's eye is your ideal realtor. We all have our mind's eye ideal realtor. Part of my assessment for my thesis was put in your mind the ideal realtor that you can see and assess yourself on that person. But if you do that, from an assessment point, you're great. If you do it from another point of view, you're going to go senile. You're going to go crazy, right? Because you're not that person. Make sense?
I like it, man. Makes lots of sense, a lot of sense. And you know what? Today was all very much about how to maximize your performance as a realtor. I know that between the two of us, there's a lot more we could tackle together in doing that. And we've done that many times over the years.
Yep.
Mike, I want to thank you. This was an insightful conversation. Certainly
Awesome.
a lot of great talking points. And as you say, hopefully people were able to pick something up. There was a lot to pick up, and I'm hoping that everybody was taking notes.
Perfect.
So again, I thank you for making the time today, man.
Next time we do this, we got to have a cold one when we do it. Okay.
I love you, man. I'm in. Let's do that.
Right on.
Mike, thank you again very much.
Yeah. And I'm humbled actually to be on your program, to have been invited. I'm so proud of you, as I said before, to have watched these humble beginnings when you were formulating. And I don't even think back in 2015, you had this ultimate vision, right? But you had an idea, and that idea has grown, right? It's evolved to what it is today. And so you in your business, when you're listening today in this podcast, you start with this vision and let that vision grow, right? It may be that your vision is, I want to do 10 deals, but you might find out it'll be 50 deals in 10 years that you're doing every year. But you got to start somewhere, right?
You know what, man? It's cool because sorry, was that?
You started somewhere in 2015. You're on 285 podcasts. You're on the stage at world-class events in our business, and I'm so proud of you for doing it, man.
Oh man, you're like making the hair stand up here, man. It's like my cheeks are going red. I'm on camera, Mike. Don't do this to me.
No. This guy used to come to my office. We'd have 20 people maybe sitting in front of him. Now you got 2,000 people standing in front of you at these audiences. So to me, you're the Academy Award. You should go on the Stanley Cup if there's one for real estate. Okay.
I appreciate you, man. I really appreciate you. And I'll tell you something. We are very happy with where we are. We are not where we're going, wherever that be. I look forward to seeing you right there with us as you always have been. And I thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, my man. Thank you, buddy. I'll talk to you shortly. Wow, what an episode. You are either listening to this one on your favorite podcast platform, or maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. While you're there, a reminder, make sure you check out the details of our upcoming Mindshare Mastermind. Download your free copy of the Ultimate Marketing Bundle, and make sure that you're building more mindshare every single day so that you're getting more market share. For any questions you have about anything we're up to, mastermind, coaching, speaking, training, you name it, podcast. For all inquiries, just get in touch with us today. Of course, don't forget to leave a review of this podcast. It means a whole hell of a lot to us. You can go over to www.ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. It makes it super, super easy for you, whether you're on an iPhone. I don't know why people have iPhones. No, I'm joking. Or you're on an Android. go Android. But wherever you are, you go to that link, www.ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. It will take you directly to your favorite podcast platform. We would be very, very grateful if you took a moment to do that. Of course, if you haven't yet, let's connect on Facebook and TikTok at Mindshare101 and on Instagram at David Greenspan 101. Just before we sign off, I want to take a very quick moment to say thank you. A big thank you to Kids Keep in Touch Systems, REM Real Estate Magazine, and OREA, the Ontario Real Estate Association, for sponsoring this podcast. This has been another episode of the Mindshare Podcast. Thank you for tuning in.